Hi, thanks for joining us and welcome to the Family Plot, Gardening in the Mid-South, and happy Thanksgiving. This is our final episode this season, and today it's just me and Mr. D, and we're going back to the basics, back to the earth. Our raised beds are filled with soil, and we're ready to pull a soil test. We'll take a tour of the soil testing lab in Nashville, and we'll show you how to interpret the results. All that and more is just ahead on the Family Plot, Gardening in the Mid-South, so stay with us.
This is a production of WKNO Memphis. Production funding for the Family Plot, Gardening in the Mid-South is provided by Goodwin's Landscape and Garden Center in Germantown since 1943 and continuing to offer its plants for successful gardening with 7 greenhouses and 3 acres of plants, plus comprehensive landscape services. International Paper Foundation, the WKNO Production Fund, the WKNO Endowment Fund, and by viewers like you. Thank you.
Hi, welcome to the Family Plot. I'm Chris Cooper. Today, it's just me and Mr. D. We're going to get started by taking a soil sample from our raised beds. Ready? Let's do it. All right. Where you want to start at?
Okay. The important thing is to do a random sample.
Okay.
Right?
All right.
I like to use 2 trowels or a trowel and a spoon,
Okay.
or a shovel and a spoon, or a military shovel, anything works. Okay, we need to do a random test, and I see random as being like here, 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 and here, just kind of randomly through here. We want to sample the upper 4 inches, 4 to 6 inches, but about 4 inches of soil. So
Okay.
I'll take a trowel and I'll push it down in the ground about 4 inches, and then I'm going to lean it over, and I'm going to go down and just do a scoop up that cut. And we're done there.
Right.
Let's go to another spot.
We're doing random.
Like I said, yeah, a teaspoon works really good. Really works better than another trowel. But I'm going down and I'm scooping up, and I'm trying to get I want it to be as uniform from very shallow to that 4 inches as I can get. Okay. Let's go right 4 to 6 inches. I went a little shallow on those, so I'm going to go down, bring it on up, and we need a pint. Is that what we need?
Yeah, it's enough that'll fit in the box.
Something like that. I might start getting a little bit bigger bites here as I do this.
Okay.
I may fall in the bed here in a minute.
That looks good, huh?
That'll work. Yeah.
You look like you might have done this a time or two, huh?
Actually, most of the time I use a soil probe when I do this. I have a soil probe in my truck, but we're figuring that most homeowners don't have a soil probe, so this is a very, very simple and good way to do it. And all the beds have the same soil. We're only going to sample one bed. Now, out in the agricultural community, one sample can cover up to 10 acres. And a farmer will use one sample, one type sample if the soil types are the same. If he sees and knows that the soil types are different, then he will pull a different sample from each of those areas. But one sample can cover up to 10 acres. Now, doesn't this look pretty random?
Looks random to me.
Let me get one more. Is that going to be enough soil?
I think that's going to be more than enough.
Okay, good deal.
Soil looks good.
Mm-hmm. You can't tell by looking, though. I mean, you can tell that you've got quite a lot of organic matter, but you can't tell the nutrient content by looking. That's pretty, you can tell that's pretty wet. So we need to let that dry out completely and leave it on newspaper or paper towel for several days and let it dry. It costs money to ship water. So we don't want to mail water. We want it to be completely dry before we send it to the soil test lab.
And that's how easy it is to pull a soil test. Right now, we're going to take a tour of the soil lab in Nashville to show you how they analyze it.
I would like to encourage growers to soil test before they assume that they've done something wrong. Because sometimes we might buy a shrub or buy a tomato plant or plant some things and it not go right, and we think, oh, well, we must have planted it too deep, or it had a disease. I encourage you to soil test. It's cheap. It's $7. You can get the results back within a week, and it's the best $7 I think you'll ever spend. And plus, you can't tell by looking at your garden what it needs or what your soil fertility is. You only can know that through a soil test.
We get a daily delivery of the U.S. mail, and we also get UPS, and I guess there is FedEx does also send samples. So whichever is most convenient for the person, they'll send it in that way. Then once it arrives, we open up the samples. As soon as all the paperwork is checked in, paid for, then I line up our sample or trays. I usually test on a tray. We'll have groups of 40.
The sample is dried at 150 degree temperature, and then the sample is ground, passed through a crusher, and then through a tin mesh so that all the soil particles are the same size or less, so that'll facilitate analysis. At that point, the sample is split off in two different directions. One 10-gram sample is measured for water pH, which tells us essentially the pH of the soil, which indicates how available or unavailable the plants may be, and also that analysis gives us an indication as to whether we need lime or not. And then 5 grams of that sample is measured off to do the elemental analysis, and that's phosphorus, potassium, calcium, magnesium, in the basic test. And then if there are any other increments that are ordered, then we can also do that analysis with that 5-gram sample. And then from that point, the results are tallied. They are stored in a database, and then we take those soil test results along with the information that you provided on your information sheet. So if you want recommendations for a garden or a warm season lawn, or if you're wanting 200 bushel per acre corn, we'll provide lime and fertilizer recommendations based on the soil test results, and those recommendations are formulated using the University of Tennessee row crop recommendations.
The main thing is quality control, making sure that your samples are, you keep the integrity of them. And so that's kind of where we focus. And Debbie has the degree in the soil, and that's why when you call, you'll end up usually talking to Debbie on the phone, and she can help you interpret the numbers that I pull off of the instruments.
Crop codes are used to give us an idea of what you're trying to grow. Otherwise, we don't know, and we've got over 100 crop codes in our database. And each one, many of them are the same if you look at pounds of nutrient per acre, but we've done the math for you. So say for example, if you're growing squash, okay, let's say summer squash, we have that in a large, like a VC crop code, but the recommendation you would be getting would be per acre. And most homeowners don't have an acre-sized garden. And then they would be calling us going, okay, how am I going to put 300 pounds of this on my, how do I figure this out? So essentially we've done the math for you. And so if you choose the G crop code, which is garden, it's for all those plants that are typically grown in a garden in an increment that's easier to consume, that's in per 1,000 square feet. Now, regarding your lawn, there is a little bit of difference because lawns typically consume or require more nitrogen than we recommend for gardens. And of course that depends on the test result as well, but as a general rule, a Bermuda grass lawn would be fertilized many times a year, typically 2, maybe 3 times in the fall, and then once or twice again in the spring. We don't recommend an application like that for a garden. We get the rap for not recommending very high amounts of fertilizer. There's several reasons for that, and a lot of it is cost, but also environmentally. Our recommendations are sustainable because they're very small, and I've had people call and say, well, you can't even see the fertilizer on the ground when you apply it. I said, well, that's the point. You need it, but you only need very little. So if we say 5 pounds per 1,000 square feet, it doesn't mean 10 pounds is better. It means don't go over 5 pounds. That's all you need. And if you add more fertilizer than is recommended, then you stand the chance of contamination. And it also, too, as these fertilizers, and especially potassium is a salt, as you over-fertilize or keep fertilizing year after year after year with high rates of fertilizers, you'll build up the salt volume in your soil, and salt is toxic to most plants. And so you'll end up with an over-fertilization problem, and then there's nothing you can do about that. Just give it time. I think it's good to plan. That way, if you are going to plant a garden, say for example in a new place, or let's even say if you're wanting to establish blueberries. 9 times out of 10, if you're growing blueberries, you're going to have to lower your soil pH. You can't do that today and expect the pH to be lower a week from now. It takes 6 to 8 months or better to get that pH down. So my advice is to soil test now for your garden in the spring. Is it wet? Yes, it's cold, and the ground will be frozen here before long, but we can dry soils. And actually, you can dry your own soil, not in an oven, but put it on a paper plate and lay it out on the countertop. It'll dry by itself in a day or so. A dry sample is cheaper to ship than a wet sample. But yes, soil test far enough ahead of time, not necessarily for us, but for you, so that you can plan and have all those things ready to go when it comes time to plant. Okay?
Okay, when you get your results back, here's what it's going to look like. All right, so I guess we get started, Mr. D, with the pH.
Looks pretty good, doesn't it?
Looks real good to me.
I'm impressed with the quality of the soil that we have here. pH is 6.8, which is slightly acidic. We want it a little bit below 7. And most vegetables and fruits like a pH in the 6.5 to 7 range. So no lime is needed.
No lime is needed.
It looks like we're high on phosphorus and very high with potassium. And as long as we don't let it get any higher, we're okay. That basically means that we do not need to add any phosphorus or potassium. And if you look over on the recommendations, it says limestone. Lime is not recommended at this time. Phosphorus and potassium levels are high and are very high. Therefore, additional application of these nutrients is not recommended.
Right.
So we don't want to use a complete fertilizer out there.
Okay, something like triple 10 or triple 13.
We don't need anything that has the last 2 numbers.
Okay.
So basically, all that we need is 5 pounds of a nitrogen source, like 3400 or 2700 or something that has about 30% nitrogen. 5 pounds per 1,000 square feet.
Okay.
Now,
we're not going to add that much, are we?
We do not have 1,000 square feet, and so this is where algebra kicks in. Algebra kicks in, and kids, study your math. It's important that you understand algebra, whether you're a farmer or not.
Okay. Just go through a little bit of it, though.
Okay. Basically, what I did, since it's recommended 5 pounds of a nitrogen source per 1,000 square feet. I broke it down into an algebraic expression. And 5 pounds per 1,000 square feet is not a lot of fertilizer. And so I broke the 5 pounds down into ounces. So 5 pounds times 16 ounces equals 80 ounces. So 80 ounces per 1,000 square feet. And we have 124 square feet,
Right.
I understand.
We do.
And you just break it down to an algebraic expression, and it comes out to 9.92 ounces for our spot, which is about 10 ounces for our raised bed.
Okay, so that'd be the 10 ounces of the 34.
10 ounces of 3400.
Okay.
So sometimes when you're using very, very small amounts like this, it's a better idea to mix it with water and mix it real good and spray it and go over it. Try to put about half of it out going one way, half the other way. Do it 2 or 3 times, and that way you'll get a much more even distribution. The recommendation after the plants come up are that you side dress with nitrogen, because nitrogen will only give you about 4 weeks. It'll only last about 4 weeks out there if it's not a slow release form of nitrogen. And these types are not generally slow release forms.
Okay.
When vines of cucumbers, cantaloupe, pumpkin, squash, and watermelon are about 1 foot long, or when your tomatoes, pepper, and eggplant fruit are about 1 inch or more in diameter, and that's usually about 4 or 5 weeks probably after you've planted.
Seems about right.
When your sweet corn is 12 to 18 inches tall, you'll go in and you'll side dress.
Okay. Now, what do we mean by side dress? Because somebody's probably like, what is that?
You will sprinkle a little bit of this same type fertilizer, nitrogen fertilizer, alongside the plant. You can do it or spray it.
Okay, I'll spray it. Okay.
And the recommendation is about 1 to 1.5 pounds per 100 foot of row. Now, I don't know whether our rows are going to be long ways or crossways on our bed, but we need to break this down to per foot of row.
Okay.
And 1.5 pounds per foot of row is about 0.24 ounces per foot. But the main thing, the most important thing here that I see is that you have high and very high levels of potassium and phosphorus. And do not, under any circumstances, use a complete fertilizer out here right now, because if you increase, especially the phosphorus, phosphorus is very, very stable, and it'll stay out there a long time, and too many nutrients will interfere with the uptake of other nutrients.
Right. Okay, well, that's some good information, Mr. D. And if you need help with interpreting your results, you can call us at the Extension office. We'll be more than happy to help. All right, here's our Q&A session. The last one for the year. How about that?
Hey.
And these are always good.
They are.
All right, we have a couple of letters here. Our first letter is from Frank and Angela in Clifton, Tennessee. And they have a question about imidacloprid. Okay, and is the fruit from plants treated with this product safe for human consumption? Let's take that one first.
And I would say absolutely. If you follow the label directions, you put the labeled amount of the material out there, and if you follow the post-harvest interval that is on there. And I've seen with imidacloprid, it range from 3 to 7 days, depending upon the crop that you have. I know with blueberries in Tennessee, it's 3 days post-harvest interval. With some of the other fruit, it's 7 days. But imidacloprid is probably the most widely used insecticide.
It is.
It's been
Very
around
popular
since the early 90s, and there's been a lot of research done on imidacloprid. It's found to have extremely low toxicity where mammals is concerned, and a high toxicity where insects are concerned. So I would not worry a lot about that, as long as you follow the label directions on the amount that you use.
All right, which is why it's important again to read the label.
And it's going to be a lot more toxic. I know later on in the question they ask about neem oil and some of the other materials. This is going to be a lot more effective on insects than these other some of these other more organic insecticides.
Yeah. Well, yeah, let's get to it then. It says, would this product cause the first 1/16 to 1/32 inch of new growth on my 1-year-old blueberries to turn dark brown, essentially topping the plant, stunning the growth, and making too many close branches, and I don't think so.
No, this
I don't
product
think it
wouldn't
doesn't
do
have
that.
anything to do with that.
Yeah, I don't know what would cause that. That sounds like, it could be an oil. I don't know whether an oil would have been mixed with that, or it almost sounds like frost injury or freeze injury or.
That was going to be hard to tell without having a visual, but I don't. This product wouldn't do that.
This product would not do that.
It definitely wouldn't do that. And to go further, I used the product to combat the many types of ants and a small 1/4 inch flying ant, but with black spots. Or would a mixture of neem oil and hot pepper, cayenne, work better?
I'm not sure imidacloprid is labeled to control ants or those kind of insects.
It's not.
I've seen this Japanese beetle and things like that.
Wood-boring insects, but
Yeah,
not ants.
so I would look at the type of insect you're trying to control and make sure that you target it with the insecticide that's recommended for that.
Sure.
I'm not familiar with these ants that she's talking about, flying ants.
Yeah, I'm not either. Again, we need a visual.
We need a picture.
To see.
We need a picture of that, or
to make that
or a
distinction.
sample.
All right, well, we hope that helps them out.
Hope so.
All right, Mr. Frank and Miss Angela. Okay, here's our next question. Okay, and we have a letter from Miss Chandler up in Cadiz, Kentucky, and you say you know where that is.
I know where that is. Yeah.
All right. She has several questions, and the first one has to do with magnolia seeds, and she wanted a step-by-step means of getting them to grow into a tree. But Miss Susie Askew was here to talk about that, and we're going to get Miss Susie to send her some information about those step-by-step procedures to get her magnolia seeds to grow into trees.
Right.
Okay?
Good idea.
All right. And her next question was this. Now, she has 5 apple trees of different varieties, from yellow, striped red, yellow, solid red, round apples, to a sweet 16 apple. How about that? Amish neighbor knows a man who knows how to graft bud to another tree. I tried on my own from a magazine article I've read, but I'm not sure if it will be successful. Mr. D, can you talk about proper training, proper techniques for this?
I can, and what I've done is I've gone to the University of Kentucky has an excellent publication that you can go on the web, and it will give you some good ideas about budding. This is not the time of the year to bud.
Right.
Budding is done during the summertime when the bark will slip on the plants.
Okay.
So I couldn't. I thought about bringing in some wood and trying to demonstrate how to do that.
Yeah,
now, but we need to do that. We need to do that next year.
That would be something neat to do.
June or July next year. But the way that you do it is you select a branch from about a pencil-sized branch from the plant that you desire, and you cut off the very tip of it and cut it back so that you've got a branch about 4 to 6 inches long. Take the leaves off, but leave about 1/4 inch of the petiole at each of the buds.
Okay.
And and you select a bud from near the middle of that branch, because it should be the one that's most mature. The ones out on the end are less mature, and the ones back toward the larger size of the stick is more, probably too mature. But you do and make an inverted T, a slice in the branch where you want to put the bud, or the rootstock. If you're putting it, you can put it on a branch of a big tree, about that same size or a little larger, or on the rootstock of one that you've planted, and you do probably an inverted T bud, which is you make a split about 1 inch long, and then a 1/2 inch for the top or the bottom of the T. It's going to be upside down.
Okay.
And then you take your bud and you make sure that it's pointed the direction it was growing.
That's important.
The top's got to be up, and you remove that from, you've selected the bud from the desired bud, the bud wood that you have, and you just slide it up in that inverted T, and so that it fits in there, and then you tape it with rubber grafting tape, or you can even use electrician's tape and things like that, and do several of them, because you're going to lose a few.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. D. Well, that's all we have time for today. Since this is our final episode for the season, I want to thank all of our viewers for watching and sending us your questions. We'll be back in February. In the meantime, don't forget your county extension agents are there to answer your questions year-round, so don't hesitate to give them a call. And you can still watch past episodes of The Family Plot online. Just go to WKNO.org and click on KNO Tonight. And be sure to follow us on Facebook and Twitter. Thanks for joining us. I'm Chris Cooper, and I'll see you next year. I hope you have a safe and joyful holiday season and a happy new year, and be safe.
Production funding for The Family Plot, Gardening in the Mid-South is provided by Good Winds Landscape and Garden Center in Germantown since 1943 and continuing to offer its plants for successful gardening with 7 greenhouses and 3 acres of plants, plus comprehensive landscape services. International Paper Foundation, the WKNO Production Fund, the WKNO Endowment Fund, and by viewers like you. Thank you.